Now pay attention to these particular zones, North America and China, because we all know China is the rising superpower, whatever. Let's make all those changes. US looks pretty good. Kern County still has solar, still has wind. The rest of the world, not so much. There are only 3 first world countries that can actually make a reasonable go of green energy. Now let's put your situation in context. We talk about East Kern as being an ideal zone. It is. In West Texas, there is empty, flat, open, dust-free, level land equivalent to 3 California Central Valleys. Not 3 California Central Valleys that are flat and open. 3 in total. So far, Texas has added 25 gigawatts of wind and about 4 gigawatts of solar. Now, you're on wind, you're like, ooh, and on solar, you're like, whatever, because Kern County has beat Texas when it comes to solar. But here's the thing, we have no state mandate, we have no state subsidies. Texans aren't green because they care about the environment. Texans put in green power because they're cheap. I think I'm the only one who actually paid for his panels, actually. Over the course of the next 5 years, Texas is going to be the #1 solar state. And probably 5 to 10 years from now, guess what the first city in the country is that's going to go 100% green power? Dallas-Fort Worth. Dallas-Fort Worth hangs environmentalists. The math has changed. We waited for you to do all the research and development, the technological stuff, and put in earlier generations of the stuff. We waited for it to all work, then we put it in. That's how Texas does it. Texas doesn't believe in government. It's a different system. Okay, let's talk food. The deep blue and the deep green, those are the states that are significant exporters of grain-based calories, wheat, corn, rice, soy. Everybody else is a net importer, with countries in red and orange importing at least half of the calories that they consume. Now, in a global system that starts to fall apart, where supply chains become more of a problem, these are the countries that are looking at least a 40% reduction in their ability to grow the crop in the first place. This is what famine looks like, folks. Continental in scope. It's a country killer. It's a culture killer. And if you are an American farmer, it is quite possibly the best end scenario of all. The last time the global agricultural system seized up like this, it was the early 1800s, the Napoleonic Wars. Every food exporter in the world had a crisis simultaneously, with the exception of the United States. It was our pioneer era. It was the greatest expansion in agricultural wealth in human history, and we're about to have it again. There are only 5 countries that are going to come along for the ride on that particular boom. Only 5 countries that can expand agricultural output in that environment. Now, the first one, of course, is the United States. It will expand more than everybody else put together. The next one is Myanmar. Anybody here grow rice? Okay, we'll move on. Argentina and France. Little bit of everything. Australia, it's all about the wheat, it's all about the beef. However, Australia is right on the edge climate-wise. It makes East Kern look wet sometimes. So they're not a consistent competitor. They've got rises and falls that happen pretty dramatically. And then the last one is freaking little New Zealand. Now, New Zealand has tripled their dairy herd in the last 40 years. They are now the world's #1 dairy exporter. They've got the land, they've got the climate, they never get snow, it never gets too hot. You put up 4 posts and some wire and yellow ribbons, you have a dairy paddock. You're done. That's it. Lowest development cost for it in the world. As a side effect of New Zealand's dairy industry, they are already the world's 5th largest beef exporter. One of these days, it is going to occur to some clever Kiwi that they can raise cattle for beef on purpose. And they're going to take that market by storm. Okay, factor number 5, demography. Now what we have here is a standard demographic profile. You've got children at the bottom, young adults, mature adults, retirees at the top, men on one side, women on the other. This is India. This is what's called a consumption-led demographic. Because whenever you've got your bulge in your population below roughly age 40, it's all about the spending. Kids, cars, college, pot, spend. But they're new. Yeah, you tell that joke in like Texas and everyone's just like stony silence. They're new. They've got high demands, but they don't have the income to match, so they have to borrow to make up the difference. College loans, car loans, mortgages. Fun thing about a system like India, they don't necessarily need to be part of a global network, because all those young people can consume almost everything that the country produces. They can be shut off from everyone else. That's not the case for the Koreans. They had a baby bust back in the 70s and 80s. They never recovered. So they've got a lot of people in that 40 to 65 bracket, the mature workers, the people who have been in their careers for 30 years, know everything there is to know. But the kids have moved out and the house has been paid down. Yet they've got all this money coming in from their expertise. So this is a system that, instead of being driven by consumption, is driven by capital and investment. Great infrastructure, great mid-career training, fantastic technological base. But it has to be part of a broader network, because they can't possibly consume what all those highly productive workers produce. And then, if you're not careful, you turn into Japan. Japan's got an interesting problem. How do you run a first world economy without a workforce? There's a reason that they are the world's leader in automation. Fun fact about robots. They don't vote yet, so it doesn't matter where you put them. Tokyo forward positions large chunks of their industrial base in third countries in order to purchase strategic friendship. The 4 largest Toyota facilities, Kentucky and Texas. Now, here's the United States. We're kind of in the middle, kind of a chimney. I want to draw your attention to that bulge down below. Those are the millennials. Goddamn millennials. Now, while I love making fun of millennials, this isn't that kind of presentation, so I'll just take a couple subtle digs. That bulge is what has kept the United States out of recession since probably 2010. And there's enough young people in that bulge that their consumption will probably keep us out of recession for at least another 5 years, maybe 7, certainly at least 2. All those fidget spinners add up. Second good thing about the millennials is, if you fast forward to the year 2030, they start edging into that tax-paying class. So we all have heard about the baby boomers retiring and how it's the snake swallowing the watermelon. That is true. I don't mean to talk you out of that concern. It's very real. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Third, we're the only ones with a light at the end of the tunnel. Because if you look at the combined demography of the rich world without the Americans, nobody else has millennials. We're in the midst of the Great Transition. The United States has become the only country that can absorb global exports. At the same time, it's abandoning the global order that makes those exports possible. It's a 1-2 punch to everybody else that most countries won't survive. We'll talk about California's demography a little bit later. Sixth, geography. Tan area, that's the greater Midwest. Largest chunk of arable land in the world, outproduces the rest of the world's major zones by a factor of 2 to 1. Sorry, I said that wrong. Outproduces the next 2 zones combined. The yellow, I'm sorry, where am I getting yellow? The blue lines, the greater Mississippi system. That's the world's largest natural navigational water network. Moving things by water is about 1/12 the cost of moving them by land, and it perfectly overlays the world's greatest production of bulk products. In addition, mountains and deserts to the south, forests and lakes to the north, ocean moats on either side. The United States not only is the richest chunk of territory in the world, it is the most securable. We are condemned to being an economic, financial, cultural, industrial, agricultural, and military superpower. Decades of bipartisan effort have yet to screw this up. And we didn't figure out how to do so last night either.